Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed for this podcast, the people it reaches, the impact it's having, the messages that we get on a daily basis. Just feel so very blessed. So thank you for everyone that listens regularly, that supported this podcast. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. Let us know how you feel, what you think. Feedback is always a blessing. So thank you. This podcast, a quick intro to me. I'm an Akashic record reader. I'm an Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love to guide people on their journey, hold their space while they're going through a shift. I feel like we're all going through so many shifts, and I get to guide people in so many different ways through a mentorship program that we channel, through Akashic record reading, through just readings and connecting and listening to the podcast. I feel so very blessed with this podcast and with what I get to do. I spent many years in the corporate world. I left the corporate world a few years ago to do what I love to do. And with the shift the planet's going through, I really feel now's the time to guide people in this sort of way. And we have a beautiful mentorship program. If you feel like you're ready to be guided, let us know. We also introduced the phase 2, where actually what we do is we guide you to create a program. If you're ready to do something like become a spiritual mentor, we guide you to create that program, whether individually or together with Stacey. Reach out. We love what we get to do. This podcast won't be where it is today without my beautiful co-host, introducing the amazing, the stunning, the hero extraordinary and published author, Stacey Brown. Stacey, you're not going to do it. I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, friends. So good to be back with you on another episode. I'm really looking forward to it. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from all around the world. I am also an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor. My first book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender, is available on Amazon and Audible. I'm really looking forward to getting into this episode today.
Thank you, Stacey. And as I always say with this podcast, we don't edit anything, we don't script anything. Whatever comes through, comes through. And I got a question from somebody which basically said, if I could change something, what would I change? And my background, everything I've been through, and I mean, it'd be a lot easier to pick lots of things, kind of people I've lost and all that sort of stuff. But I'm a big believer that wherever I'm at, I'm meant to be. But we thought, why don't we go and talk about that at a deeper level? So this is kind of inspired by a message that I got. And so today we thought about, no regrets, just remembering. How do we find grace in every chapter? And really, I guess it's let me ask you as we open this episode, would you really change anything? So if you could look back at your past, what, if you could, would you change? And if anything comes up for you, I'll ask you the second question. What did you learn from that experience? So whatever you felt you need to change, what was your biggest lesson from it? Because ultimately, whatever you've been through has led you to this moment. So if you wanted to change something, what was your lessons that you took from that thing you want to change? Ultimately, there's a difference between regret and remembrance on the soul journey, right? Remembrance is just remembering that whatever you did is right, not right or wrong, it just is. And it's part of your soul journey is remembering that this is what you're here to do. And what if whatever you've done, there's no mistakes, there's no right and wrong, it just is. And you're on a path that will lead you to where you are today. And what if you're already living your destiny? And even if that's not perfect, it's interesting because when we talk about purpose and destiny, we think it's a destination, right? Something when we get to, we'll be happy. For me, that's not really what this life's about. This life is for a soul having a human experience. And we're not trying to get anywhere. We already are where we're meant to be. So just reflect on that. What would you really change? Stacey, you know where I'm going with this, right? What if you could change anything about your past that led you to this moment? I know you've been through a lot. If there is something, what would you change and why?
I knew this question was coming. Like I've been bracing myself. My hands are currently sweating.
Of course, you
like,
knew the question was coming.
like I just am churning. So I'm conflicted about this question because I am very aware that I would not be where I am right now had it not been for every step that I've taken along the way. But I would be lying if I said there weren't things that I play out in my head going differently. And I can't believe I'm going to talk about this on the podcast, but leave it to the podcast to get Stacey to talk about something. Um, you know, going through what our family went through 6 years ago with my son. And for those who don't know, my son battled mental health and substance abuse issues. He overdosed in our home and survived. And then 4 months later, he attempted to take his own life by running his car into a tree at 100 miles an hour. And when that happened, everybody in the family handled the trauma differently. We all kind of went into our own bubble, and we all were trying to make sense of it and trying to heal and trying to do what was needed to. And through that process was the demise of my marriage. And I still think about getting on the plane and flying to you and spending a month there and all the self-discovery that I was doing, some grieving I was doing. I wrote my book while I was there. And when I came back to the States, my marriage was over. And I look back sometimes and I'm like, what could I have done differently? Like, how could I have saved things? What could I have done? But I know that going through that process was something that I had to do to get to where I am right now. And I wouldn't be in the relationship that I am in now. I wouldn't be in the career that I am in now. I probably wouldn't have published my book had I stayed in that relationship. And so I can see all of the reasons why it didn't work. But there's still a part of me that is sad that we spent, 20 plus years being in each other's lives and trying to heal and move forward together. And ultimately it didn't work. And I would say it's one of the only things that I still kind of marinate on and think about like, well, what if and what would be different? But I also know that I wouldn't be helping all the people that I'm helping now had I stayed in that relationship. I would probably still be doing hair full time. I would not have written my book. I would not have the relationships that I have in my life. And so I think it's okay to have thoughts of kind of regret or wishing that things had turned out differently. I think it's okay to have like twinges of that. But I think there also needs to be an acceptance that we wouldn't be where we are right now had we not taken every single step that we have. And I know had I not gotten on that plane for a month, my book never would have been written. And it's something that has impacted a lot of people. And so I think about how I would be holding other people back from their healing journey if I wasn't here doing what I'm doing. So I know this is a long-winded way of answering the question, but I guess for me, it's just not a straight line. I want it to be, but it's not.
That's okay, right? There's some of our deepest, darkest experiences. We can accept and realize how much we grew from them, but it's still okay to wonder what would be different if we didn't go down that route. I mean, Stacey, you wouldn't be the healer you are today, and yes, your book, but so much more. If I think about this podcast and everything else we've done with this podcast, if you hadn't chosen to leave that area, leave that kind of orbit you were in, who knows, right? And that's the thing, we don't know, right? And I mean, I look at so many areas of my life, and I mean, I could go into so many different areas. For example, I haven't followed a traditional program path of getting married, having kids, and there has been times I've looked at it, and sure, I've been engaged in long term relationships, but I've never actually got married and had kids. And I remember years ago, I used to have a conversation with my soul, my God, and say, "Well, hold on, am I not meant to be happy on this planet? Am I, is this a different journey?" And I've had a number of conversations with my soul, and I realized that this is what my soul chose. I wouldn't have expanded in the way that I've expanded, and what my soul wouldn't have experienced what is here to experience if I'd followed that path. So, humanly, do I still wonder sometimes? Of course, would it have been good to be a dad, and what would that be like? Sure, 100%. On the flip side, I've got to experience so much. I mean, for example, I've got 4 brothers, 4 sisters, 10 nephews, 3 nieces, and I have such a special connection with my nephews and nieces. They come to me for advice when, different to their parents, because I don't have, there's no, I won't tell them what to do as an example. I will just give them perspectives on the options they have. But I've also taken to the first concert. There's, so many different experiences. And they tell me quite often that if I'd followed this different path, then I wouldn't have the same connection with them. So it's important to realize and really ask yourself that question. What have you grown from those experiences? Why would your soul have chosen this path? And what have you gained by what may have seen a intense experience? And having been with Stacey when she's recorded a book, and we recorded it here, been a close partner when she published it, and I knew how deep she had to go through every time she had to tell a story. I wouldn't want to wish that story on anybody, but at the same time, it's easy for me to see on the outside how much of a healer, how much Stacey's grown through the process. So it's an interesting question, it's just, but exploring your life in the lens of, what has it taught me? Why would my soul have picked this? What am I, what soul contracts did I gain by everything I've been through? What karmic cycles? And yeah, like I said, why would your soul have picked this? What karma did you feel like you needed to release personally or ancestrally? What did your soul need to experience? How have you expanded? What are you doing today because of the pain that you went through? It's kind of really, to take that lens for me is really important. I say quite often I have no regrets, and I don't have regrets. And, I remember talking to Sidra about FOMO, and, we changed it to MO. So it's not fear of missing out, just MO, missing out. So I don't call it FOMO anymore. It's called MO. But it is, it's acceptance that we're on this path, that we chose this path. And another small example, Sidra, if you don't know, was my mentor, my friend. She passed away in March 2020, and she had a final soul spa in India, and I was actually supposed to go, but I was still in the corporate world, and things happened, and I couldn't go. And I remember thinking, oh, she's gonna have more anyway. I'll see her when she's back in the UK or whatever. It's that kind of. But obviously, when she passed away later in that same month, would I have liked to have gone to that soul spa? Yes. Would I have liked to spend time with her? Yes. But I also feel like she was preparing me for her not to be here. We had, because I was busy and she was busy. We hadn't really connected much in the few months before she left this realm. And I actually feel that was the universe, that was her preparing me for whatever's coming next. And it is really important to realize that, and maybe take a different lens, because grief is such an interesting thing, right? For me, every time I've experienced grief, it has led to the journey through it, has led me through expansion. My dad passed away 30 years plus, mum 15 years plus, and I've connected with their souls. I've understood why they're in the journey, and the gifts I have has allowed me to do that. So Do I wish they were still here? Yes, of course I do. Do I wish I could have had more time with them? If I could change something, I wonder what my life would be like if they're still here. But I actually don't let myself go there because I focus more on my dad being one of my guys who's around me, mom watching over me, sending me love. I don't, of course I still mourn them, but I focus on celebrating them. And I make this stuff sound easy, I get it. But it's not meant to be hard, right? And, sorry, it is meant to be hard, but it doesn't have to be complicated. So, Stace, what would your advice be when answering this question about, kind of really trusting in your journey and realizing that you're on the path that was meant for you? What advice would you give to our listeners?
I would say there needs to be an acceptance of what you've been through, which is the first step in really allowing yourself the space to absorb that you are exactly where you're meant to be. And, I think about all of the challenging things that I've been through, all the challenging experiences that have led me to this place, and I would not want to relive any of them again. The idea of going through any of that again is very overwhelming to me. I can't imagine living it. And yet, I wouldn't be the person that I am today had it not been through for every experience that I've been through along the way. And so I think that for our listeners, I would encourage you to go through a process of accepting that you are exactly where you're meant to be, that nothing that is for you will miss you, and that in this space, in this time, you did the best you could with the knowledge that you had at the time. I think that's one of the things that people beat themselves up about a lot is the past and regret. And if I had seen this or if I had done this, maybe this would have been different. And I think that that's a really scary place to be, because you can really twist things up in your head about how they should have been different. And so I think it's really important to recognize that at the time that you went through each experience, you did the best you could with the knowledge that you had at the time. And when you know better, you do better, right? Like you got to this place honestly. You were living authentically and doing what you could at the time with the knowledge you had. And yes, in this season, you might have done things differently, but what would you have missed? What would be different, right? I mean, so many things would be different for me if I had stayed with my husband. I would not be in the career path that I'm in. I would not be in the relationship that I'm in. I would not be in the living situation that I'm in. Like, none of the things that have happened for me in this season, in this transformation, in this evolution, none of those things would have happened. Now, it would have been a very different path, and I'm sure it would have been something enlightening in and of itself, but that's not what was planned out for me. And so I think there's got to be acceptance and then making peace with the past. And I think that a lot of us resist doing that, and we replay the past over and over and over again. And yet the past is done. There's nothing you can do about it. You've made your decisions. You've taken the steps that you have to lead to where you are right now. And trying to undo it is going to be fruitless and frustrating.
Powerful, powerful stuff. When we talk about this, for me, the most important thing is acceptance. And that's where I feel like we most struggle. Listening to this type of episode and helps you to become more aware of why you've been through what you've been through. And, that awareness helps. Without awareness, you can't do anything. But acceptance is really the tough one, i.e., accept that all the decisions you made and everything you went through is part of your journey. And even your most painful experiences, there's going to be times where you wonder, well, hold on, why did my soul pick this? Especially if you look at the pain around the world and everything what people are going through, it's like, well, hold on, why would my soul pick this? And it is a tough one, right? But that'd be my first recommendation, is to sit with your soul and just reflect on your journey and reflect who you are today and reflect who you are because of your main painful experiences. Because ultimately, pain serves as a catalyst for transformation. It really is. If I look at, as I was saying earlier, if I look at my most painful experiences, also led to my biggest expansion. I mean, I look at Sidra leaving this realm. That's kind of how I say when people pass away, right? When Sidra left this realm in March 2020, I thought we were going to take over the world together. I thought, we were going to raise the consciousness of the planet. We had all this stuff that we're talking about. And when she left this realm, for so many people around, they started to crash. And there's a part of me that obviously wanted to crash, and I miss her. But there was a part of me, I got a strength from somewhere, and I still today don't know where it is, where it came from. But I also understand that I was playing safe. I also understood that what I was doing was almost waiting for Sidra to give me permission to do things. And I realized also that she quickly became one of my spiritual guides, and that guided me to learn how to read the Akashic records, which changed my life. So do I wish she's still here? Yes, of course I do. But do I accept that she's doing exactly what she's doing on in the other realms and guiding me in that way? Of course. Do I sometimes wonder why why we couldn't do it the other way around? I spent time floating around different realms and guiding people that way instead of being on this plane. Sure, I have that conversation with all the time, but it's that realizing that your most painful experiences led to your biggest growth. That for me is what's really important. All the times my heart's been broken or whatever that looks like, I look back and I'll realize it was for a reason. And the thing is with this lifetime is most of us have agreed to release so much personal karma as well as ancestral karma, which actually means we need to feel things at a deeper level, because we're not just releasing for ourselves, we're releasing for our ancestors, which means it's a deep release, which is why everything we've been going through is at such a deeper level. And yeah, we, arguably we took one for the team, but that doesn't necessarily help. So my first recommendation would be to sit with your soul and to really go through your biggest pain and really challenge and ask yourself, why did my soul pick this? And two, how have I expanded? Who am I today because of what I've been through? That helps with awareness and acceptance. Just it's such an interesting topic, and it actually, I didn't know really where I was going to go with it in this topic. Like I said, we don't script anything, but yeah, it does bring up a lot, and it does bring up a lot in terms of just this journey that we're on is just really interesting. It's not good or bad. It just is. It's like I was talking to Stacey before I began. It's just like before we began recording, and both of us don't necessarily feel it in our bodies. It's kind of like, we're recording this the Monday after summer solstice. Actually, depending where you are in the world, the solstice could be winter or summer. But yeah, it's just an interesting energy right now where I really feel like I'm not really in my body and I'm floating, and it really does feel that energy. So the more that we can accept who we are, and kind of accept and allow our spiritual body to be in our physical, the more I feel this could become more ease and grace. Stace, how are you feeling about this conversation? Where is it taking you? I'm sure there's lots going on in your head.
It's just such a powerful process to dig into the past, and it can be such a painful experience as well. And I was kind of semi-cringing about this topic because I knew it was going to bring stuff up for me. But I think it's also in a good way too, right? Because it makes me realize how much my life would look different had I stayed in the circumstances that I did. And that's neither like good or bad. It's just different. It's a different path. And I think what I'm feeling right now is a tremendous amount of gratitude, because in the marriage ending, it set me free to pursue whatever was going to come my way and allow myself to tap into things completely differently and independently of someone else's opinion. And I think it's something that's really hard to do in marriage, right? You need both people to be on the same page. I didn't have to worry about any of that. I was able to say, okay, what is right for me? What do I need to do? How is this going to work? And it's led me on a journey of understanding myself more than I ever have before. And I think it's part of aging, right? As we get older, we get wiser, and some of us do, right? Like we get introspective and we reflect and we shift and change and grow. And I just feel like I've gained so much wisdom in this season that I didn't have before. And it has made me more certain of who I am and how I'm showing up in the world. And it has boosted my confidence because I know that this is coming from a place of authenticity, of vulnerability, of truth, my truth, and that I'm living it more loudly than I ever would have before. You know, my husband was a very private person. And so sharing on a national podcast or international podcast would not be the thing that he would do. And I don't know if he would necessarily even agree with it, but it has given me a space to be myself and show up in the world exactly the way I'm meant to. So I'm feeling a lot right now. I'm absolutely feeling like this topic was for me, and it's giving me a space to reflect about the things that I've been through and embrace the whole journey, the whole story. And I feel like the process of writing my book did that for me. That was a really powerful part of the process, to relive major, pivotal, life-changing things that have happened over the course of your life, to relive them in all the detail, to be able to share the story with the world is significant. And I've done that, right? And I've released. And now I just keep thinking, as we're talking about this, that there's more for me to process, and there's got to be a second book in there somewhere, because that process of uncovering and unpacking all of those things really taught me a lot about the journey, because it wasn't just me experiencing it, but it was then me reliving it and pulling out the lessons that came in each part of the journey. And so I'm just feeling like all the feels right now, that I am being brought through this process again with the past for a reason, and to kind of digest it a little bit more. And I'm really feeling like it's helping me to understand more about who I am. And I think that is a very powerful thing.
Thank you, Stacey. And like I was saying earlier, watching you and what you went through with writing your book, and you know, going through divorce and becoming the healer that you are, and it's interesting that it's sometimes easier to see a rebirth in somebody else than it is in yourself. And so yeah, I feel very blessed that I was by your side and guiding you whatever way I could. And I'm proud of the healer that you are. I know there's still things that we're all going through. We always are, right? But it's, it just is an interesting time. And again, why I felt this topic was so important is I feel like we're all going through this. We're all going through such a major shift. And sometimes we get tired. It's like, how many more shifts are we going to go through this phase? And if I was to be honest with you guys, I feel the same. How many shifts do we need to go through this phase? But I also know that this shifts and all the shifts we're going through are divinely timed. The planet is going through a shift, which means we all have to go through a shift. We chose to be here as souls, and therefore we chose to be part of this shift. And this is what I'm saying about awareness helps. So that information is great. Okay, we know the planet's going through a shift. Great. We know we're going through a shift too. Great. But the moment you accept it, acceptance over resistance. And again, I make it sound easy. I guess I know it isn't, especially when We have some major, what you may call them regrets. But the biggest advice I feel like we can give you from in this episode is to honor you, accept where you are, know that everything you've been going through is part of your training. Change your question. It's like sometimes we get into victim mode, right? Oh, I knew this was going to happen to me. Why does this always happen to me? Honestly, those are not quality questions. It's, you've got to change them more to, how is this serving me? Why did my soul choose this? What karma am I releasing? Getting a deeper understanding and moving away from victim mode. I'm not saying it's easy, by the way, guys. But I'm saying it does help when you start changing your question. And, I'm sure near the end of the episode, we'll go to Stacey, and Stacey will give us some beautiful journal prompts. And Stacey, I'm giving you a heads up. But it's, it's knowing that, well, unless you've got a time machine, and if you have, please let me know. You are where you are. What you've been through is part of your journey. What's coming is how much control do you really have. So the best thing to focus on is this moment. And what is the beauty in your world in this moment? What are you grateful for in this moment? Because what our guides, what the universe does, whatever we focus on expands. So if, for example, a great example I normally use is, if we ask a question from our guides, but somewhere we're like, oh, they're not going to answer us because they're too busy. Our guides will hear that and they'll be like, okay, you don't want an answer, so we won't give you one. You manifest your reality. So switching from remembrance, accepting versus rewriting. Because it's like half conversations, honestly, are they're productive. I wish I could change this, or I would, what would life be like if I was still in this relationship, all that sort of stuff. Is that productive? Healing really happens when you truly accept everything you've been through without judgment. What if you never made a mistake? What if it just is? What if it is no right or wrong? Just accepting, your soul, your guides needed you to have this human experience. It's like sometimes we put our guides on a pedestal and they can't do what they're here to do unless you have the human experience. So in many ways, actually, you're more important than your guides, but I always say you're a partnership. And sometimes we put on a pedestal. No, it's not about, it's a partnership. And, it's really about honoring you and remembering it and just be you. Your soul chose this. Grace, be kind to yourself. Embrace who you are. Fall in love with this version of you. And sure, there's so many practical tools that help you on your journey. I'm going to ask Stacey some journal prompts in a second, but if you really want to gain insight into your soul's journey, book an Akashic record reading. Me and Stacey do a beautiful joint one where you get a reading from a divine masculine and divine feminine, and it's always aligned, and maybe that's something you want to do. But looking at your self-care routine and looking at what you do to truly lift your soul and actually put yourself in that highest place is where to start. You begin with your journey. You begin with accepting who you are, falling in love with this version of you. Stop judging yourself. Also look at the people around you. Do you have people around you that hold you up, or do they bring you down? Because you're also a product of the things around you, the things you eat, the things you read, the people you talk to, the people in your life. If you need to shift, sometimes you need to shift the people around you. You need to stop doing some of the things you're doing. You need to start feeding yourself with different things. Stop watching the news. That also allows you to be present. Time in nature, time in meditation, times physical activity. Your self-care is such a big part of it. But Stacey, as we kind of get into this point, I'd love for you to share any other tools that you feel could help with this journey, and also any journal prompts that you have. Over to you.
I definitely feel this is a beautiful opportunity to journal. And you all know how passionate I am about journaling. I absolutely believe that it can help us process things on a deeper level. So I would encourage you to grab your journal and ask yourself first, what am I still holding on to from the past? And see what comes up. You never know what messages you might get from that. And then What is the past here to teach me? What have I learned through the experiences that I've had in my life? And how have those experiences shaped who I am today? And I really want you to do a deep dive reflection. Would you have the job that you have right now if things were different? Would you have the friends, the family, the life that you have? How would things be different if part of your story was different? And then finally, I think this is really important, asking yourself what you need to forgive yourself for from the past. Because I think a lot of us hold on and beat ourselves up for things that we think we could have changed or done differently now. And we're probably more likely to forgive another than we are to forgive ourselves. So, what do you need to forgive yourself for from the past in order to move forward? I feel it's another very powerful question. And I encourage you, our listeners, as you navigate through the past and this experience of diving deep and releasing it, I encourage you to reach out to us and let us know what you uncovered through this process. It is so beautiful when we get messages from our listeners. And not only does it allow us to know that you're taking in what we're sharing, but it's also really powerful to see the shifts and the transformation in your journey. So please reach out and share with us what comes up. We'd love to hear from you.
So true, so true. We'd love to hear from you. I mean, it's a powerful time, and this sort of question I'm sure we're all asking right now, right? Is that, why did we pick this? Why is it always so intense? People are at different phases, and I talk to all sorts of people all the time, and some people are in a phase where they're truly shining their light. Some people are trying to work out what that looks like, and we're all in different phases. And I feel like I talk about this all the time. I feel like in this phase, we have a choice. Do we focus on the healing that we need to do inside, or do we focus on the noise that's outside? In reality, we probably part way both. But I would encourage you to focus on what's happening on the inside. Because sometimes we spend energy and time on things that we can't change. And of course, send love to wherever is needed, do what you can. But don't forget you, don't neglect you in this process. The other thing that Stacey is only reach out to us. Maybe you're ready for an Akashic record reading to gain true insights into your soul. We love doing that. We also guide people to learn how to do this for themselves and others. That could be something interesting. But also mentorship. Getting more and more inquiries on mentorship, and people are going through a shift. And what a good mentor does is doesn't try and fix you because you don't need fixing. What a good mentor does is holds your space while you're going through a shift. He guides you to you intuitively. So if you feel like you're ready for that, if you feel like you're ready for someone to hold your space while going through a shift, then reach out to us. You can work with me and Stacey together, one of us individually, whichever resonates. We'll never push anything. We don't push sales. It's just, we're not even on this podcast really. We just talk about what we do. It's, we love what we get to do. And whatever that may be, you have a lot of help and support if you're interested. It is time for you to also look for communities that hold your space. It is time for you to ask for help you need. It is super power. Me and Stacey also have a monthly full moon even webinar, which is free. I'll include the link in the show notes. Next one's on July the 9th. It's always around the full moon. This is such an interesting journey. It's that, and we're at an interesting time on this planet's development. So hold on, ride the wave, accept who you are. What if in every moment, even the hardest ones, was preparing for this version of you? What if everything you've been going through is getting you ready, is training you? Because of course, part of what we're here to do is release karma. I talked about it earlier. We're here to expand our soul. But what if all of that is training us for how we're going to shine a light? What if you're meant to be a bridge to guide people, to let them know they have a different option? We're not here to force anybody. We're here to guide. And what if you're meant to be that light worker? What if you're meant to be that guide? If you need help, reach out. Walk the talk. Walk forward and be proud of who you are. Shine your light. You've worked so hard in so many lifetimes to be here. And we love you and we're proud of you. So thank you for listening to this episode. Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you to share any final thoughts and to close us up.
What a powerful episode. I'm just glad I didn't cry this time. I felt like I was going to. But I feel like we have done a deep dive into something that a lot of people are going to resonate with. And if this episode resonates with you, please reach out to us again and let us know. We love hearing feedback from our listeners. We're so deeply grateful for you and for the connection that we have with you in this space. What a beautiful process that we get to 2 times a week pour into you and continue to grow our listening audience. We love you all, and we're here for you to support you in any way we can. Thanks again for listening.
Love and light to everybody. Bye for now. We'll be back. See you soon.